My name is Brian Weeks. I'm a senior AEC technical specialist for ATG USA. I've been working in the industry for 22 years as a project manager and a BIM manager, and I specialize with Revit modeling and rendering, but apparently not PowerPoint and Zoom. I can become an essential part of your company's team through ATG team augmentation, and you can contact your ATG sales representative for more information. So I'm giving this presentation today on a BIMbox Striker M mobile workstation. It does save me a lot of time. It's the fastest computer I've worked on in my career, and you can receive more benchmarks and white paper on the product. Visit atgusa.com product/BIMbox. Today, we're going to talk about importing CAD details into Revit, and creating those construction details in Revit can be done a lot of different ways. So there's three types of construction detailing: model-based, 2D only, and a hybrid of 2D and model. Model-based details are details created from the 2D view of the model, and these details are typically at a smaller scale when you don't need to draw in extra line work or detail components. 2D only details are details created from line work and detail components only. Usually these are details that are your company standard details, drafting views, or imported AutoCAD geometry. Hybrid details are details created from a 2D view of the model with an overlay of line work and detail components. So now that you know about the types of detailing, we're going to talk about how to import them into your CAD details and import those and clean those details. And as I said earlier, you couldn't see this slide, but there's a lot of different methods for importing a DWG into Revit. The recommended method is to open it in AutoCAD first and clean the file there. And of course, like I've said before, there's more than one workflow. Find one that works for you. And let's see, minimize my chat here. Find one that works for you, but I'm going to present you with my typical workflow that will reduce the amount of errors that become present in your Revit model when you insert and explode a lot of different DWGs in Revit. So first thing we're going to do is we'll open our AutoCAD and open our original drawing. And I downloaded a roof detail off the internet for the demo, but it could just as easily be one of your standards. So before I move on, let me verify my share and make sure you're seeing this. Yep, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open a roof detail I downloaded. And previously, I guess I'd closed it and accidentally saved it. There was a border here that I erased. That's definitely one of the steps that, when you're part of cleaning up the detail that you pull in. Get rid of everything that you're not going to want to import into your model, into Revit when you import it. I also deleted some hatches that were here present for the roof. And then I also scaled the drawing. So when you import or you open a file in CAD and it's a detail file from a manufacturer, typically it's not all ready to scale. So you'll need to scale the entire drawing. Make sure that, like I said before, I'm using an assumption that this is a 2x4, which is 1.5 nominal. And so if I come in here and I set that at 1.5 inches, now when I insert that into Revit, this will be at an approximate scale of using a 2x4 for a nailer. You can delete the text. That's a typical workflow, but then you would have to retype that in Revit. I personally don't like to do that, and so what I will do is I will use the text to MText to convert. And there's some, yeah, there's some other comments in that there's different workflows. Jason scales by 8, so 3/32 text is now 3 1/4, and that's definitely a method to do that as well. And yes, there is a limit for importing CAD files as well on the number of lines you can import. So I'm going to go ahead and text to MText. And I'm just going to group these all together. Of course, you may have a different method. I'm not a huge fan of CAD personally. I've just been using Revit for so long that I've almost completely left AutoCAD behind. And again, all I'm doing here is converting my text to MText. So when it imports into Revit, these text blocks that are text lines, instead of, if they're supposed to be combined into one, this one already is. So next thing we're going to explode, we're going to explode the details that are in here, or explode the detail, but not the text. And so basically we don't want to insert any DWG blocks or AEC objects that are hidden within this detail. We don't want to have those inserted into our Revit. So I'm just going to go ahead and explode, and I'm going to do that a couple of times, just to make sure. And then I'm going to flatten everything. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll move everything to, well, one of the last things, I'm going to move it to 0, 0 coordinates, because I want this to insert, when I insert it into Revit, I want it to insert from origin to origin. So typically I'll just take all this, move it, and then move that to 0 to 0. And then I'll move all this to the 0 layer, because right now we have a whole bunch of different layers still present in this drawing. But if I move everything to 0, and I'm going to purge, whoop, I didn't do the text, sorry. Move the text to 0 as well. And just purge all. And I'll usually do this a couple of times just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And so, you know, it does take a couple of times sometimes to purge that out. Now, the other thing I like to do as part of my workflow is I'll go ahead and I'm going to start a new drawing. Change my units to architectural. Now, the reason I'm going to do this is because even though I've cleaned this up in here, you can still have some components and lines and things in the background of this file that can create some issues. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and the detail, and I'm going to paste it in this new file. So I know that I'm starting with a blank template. Yeah, it's not moving. That'll be close enough. So we've set our units to architectural. We can see everything 0, 0. And now we're going to go ahead and save this. And I've just called it a clean roof detail. And now it's ready to be imported into Revit. So when you import it into Revit, the best practice is to create your new detail in a standalone Revit template. Don't import it directly into your model, because again, you can create issues. If you create a new drafting view in a new template, you can do this multiple times. So you can do multiple details in this one file, maybe have a base company template that you do this for, and import multiple CAD details, clean them up. And then when you get ready to insert it into your Revit model, you can insert it as a view. So you can actually go in and select the 2D views and basically batch insert or import multiple CAD details. So first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and open my Revit. And I've started I just started a new template, and I'm going to create a new drafting view in Revit. And we'll just call it roof detail. Oh, I already did that. There we go. Oh, and I already inserted it. So when you insert it, here, let me just show you how to do that. So you go to Insert, Import CAD. You're going to select your detail. On options, I always select black and white because I draft with a white background and black line and the black lines. So I always import those as a black and white detail. Visible layers, auto detect the import units, origin to origin, and then I always uncheck correct lines that are slightly off axis because that can sometimes create issues. Go ahead and hit open. Now it's a block, it's been inserted, so I'm going to go ahead and explode. And you can see how the font's been, cleaned up, but it's still set with the different font types. Looks like we still had a couple of, okay, these are the Revit fonts, so we're good. Once it's inserted, we explode, then we can start cleaning up the line work and add components and then correct the text. So before I show you how to do those things, just briefly discuss detail components, line work, and regions. So these are three things that factor in highly with working on detail views and enlarged details in Revit. So detail components are Revit families that can be placed in drafting views, and they come out of the box from Revit, and you can also download a variety of detail components to work with the material you're looking for. And you can also create your own if you're capable of creating families. They're actually very easy to create, primarily just deal with lines, varying line types, and then of course your filled regions. So when cleaning up imported line work or drawing new line work, you want to use, I typically use line work that's out of the box. Now your company may have, your standard line names, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I personally just use the thin, medium, wide, that comes with Revit for detail components specifically, because to me, there's not really much use of making it more complicated than it needs to be. Thin lines, medium lines, wide lines, usually sufficient for your detailing. So region hatches are hatches for Revit, and there's two types of regions. There's filled regions and masking regions. Masking regions are white boxes that can have or not have visible borders, and they are typically used to mask content in a view. And then a filled region allows you to choose from a variety of hatch patterns, and you can also control the opacity and create your own patterns as well. So now that you know a little bit about detail components, line work, regions, let's go ahead and clean up our detail. So let me flip back over here to Revit. So first thing we're going to do is clean up our line work. And for example, I know that my cap flashing membrane, that's going to be a heavier line weight. You can try it with a medium or even a wide. Same with my flashing here. So what this is doing, of course, is, I mean, to some of you this may be like, well, this is just AutoCAD. Well, the difference with this is that you'll see here in a second when I start doing the fill patterns and the detail components, that is that the ease of moving and adjusting these details becomes easier when, within Revit than just having it all be line types in AutoCAD. So let me let's see what else we want to do. So those are going to be primary. Now let me go ahead and thicken these up. It looks like we got a skylight. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert a detail component. So you're going to go to your annotate component. Now you can do detail component, and you also have repeating detail components. So for example, a repeating detail component would be this metal deck. And of course I can keep going as far as I need to, but for now I'm just going to do those. Now these are all out of the box. I didn't do anything extra to set this up. I just opened the template and it was ready to go. I did have a question I'll answer real quick since I'm working on this. Does the scale of the drafting view need to match the scale that the detail was drawn in AutoCAD? Yes and no. If you, for example, I imported and this text came in as pretty much in the same location. If I had had a smaller scale, then the text would have been tighter and closer together. Here, let me show you an example. I can show you a quick example. So if I create a new view and I create a new drafting view, and this time let's go at say 1 inch equals a foot, and I'm going to insert this same detail. What's going to happen is that because the scale is a little smaller than the original, well, actually that did come in right. So we cleaned it up right in the first time. A lot of times if the text isn't cleaned up, then the text gets all scrunched over. But actually that means we did a good job cleaning up the original, because I'm still at scale. I still have a 1.5 inch deck, 3 inch rigid insulation with a cover board. So there, actually that came in just right. So let me go ahead, I'm sorry. So let's go ahead and clean up. And again, I'm going to put another detail component in here. And this time we're going to do a 2x4 nominal. So I can go back to my annotate, pick detail component. I have my 2x4. That looks to fit there. This looks like this might be a 2x6 or an adjusted, so it's a little bit less. Now the great thing about components is that you can go in and edit to make it work with the detail you've got. So in this case, these guys, this came from the roofing manufacturer. It's not exactly a 2x6, so it looks like they kind of, made it work with what they had with the cant and everything else going on. But you can go ahead and modify it just to make it work. I can duplicate it, make up some fake, you know, uh, nominal size, and it'll change that. But as a detail component, as you can see, all those are in one piece. So if I need to, you know, if I come in and I move those around or adjust any of my detail components, I'm not having to mess with a whole bunch of lines. It moves as one piece. Gonna go ahead and do, that looks like a 2x10. Yep. And there are families for cants. There's not one out of the box for Revit. So for now, just to speed things up rather than try to make one on the fly, I'm just going to leave these as lines for now, but you can create your own family of that. Let's see, what else have we got to do? Oh, we got to put our region in. So I'm going to use a filled region for our insulation. Let's go ahead and make these wide. I'm going to change this end one, this end piece, to a invisible line. And all I'm doing is with, I guess if I went through that too quick, annotate, and you pick your region, and what you do is you actually draw, much like hatching in AutoCAD, you draw the area where you're going to do your fill. And so I'm going to do you know, diagonal crosshatch, diagonal down. Let's see what those look like. And then it creates a hatch that you can then, or excuse me, a filled region that you can then change to whatever. There we go. That's what I want. To whatever pattern you need to make it fit to. I do have now I show you this method because you can do it that way, but there is also a component that does that same thing. There it is. And let's see, we've got a 1/2 inch cover, so it's 2.5 inch, give or take. It looks like it's a little bit more. So this is a detail component that does the same thing that the fill does. So again, there's multiple ways to do details from CAD to Revit. And when you do these details, again, I typically like to use as many detail components as possible, because then that reduces the number of lines that you have in your model. It's got a 1/2 inch cover board. What else? Now I will use a filled region on my steel. And I can show you how to do that real quick. Let's go ahead and I'm going to create a steel pattern. Just to show you kind of how easy it is to create your own patterns, your own fills. Whoop, sorry. Steel. And I want to change my boundary to be thicker. Okay, so one of the other things I kind of want to show as well is, if you recall, we had some line work happening here for these the screws and the fasteners. There are components that you can some places you can purchase and download. Revit has a couple that are okay for different fasteners, but to kind of have a full library of fasteners, there's add-ons that you can purchase that allow you to do this, or you can create your own you know, detail components with the fasteners. In this case, I'm going to take because I'm matching the manufacturer details, and I don't have a component that matches this. So what I'm going to do for this is I just highlighted those lines, and I'm going to group them, and then I can bring those to the front, and that'll actually kind of fulfill that need that I have to show that. Now you want to make sure you don't get any of this other stuff in there. Group, bring to front, group, bring to front. And like I said, again, these can be, you know, if your company has standards that they want to duplicate, you know, you can create a component out of these fasteners and add those to your library. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to do all the text because that's, you know, I don't want to take all your guys' time. You know how to do it most likely, but I am going to select all the text. I'm going to change it to a 332nd. 332nd out of the box with Revit is the standard font size that when you scale details, the font scales appropriately, and that's typically the readable, you know, a good readable scale for the font. If you have titles and things like that, you can of course change those as you need to. But again, I'm trying to just do this to show you some best practices. Go ahead, we can take a couple of these. I don't like that. I've never used the curves. Architects we like angles and we like straight lines and we like leaders that are filled in most likely. So if I do just a couple of these, okay, so, you know, we've got our detail, you know, you clean up your text. Oh, and it looks like that text wasn't in the CAD detail. If you recall, I didn't do this, the text to M text, and now you see what happened. I thought it already was as one text and it wasn't. So that would take some cleanup. But that's why I say just use text to M text all the time. So now we're going to go ahead, I'm going to save this just as a temp CAD roof details. And so, like I said, what your company can do if you have a lot of CAD details to come over, you can just have one person importing CAD details into this one file all day, create multiple views, rename them what they need to be named, and then, you know, you can get that library built up into this one file. And then, because we still have, you know, all the extra stuff that did import in with this, even though we cleaned it multiple times, the fonts were still different. So that's one of the reasons you don't want to try to import this into your original or your actual Revit model. And so what I'll do is I'll have a separate Revit model with all my details in it. And then if I create, you know, what we'll call my original, let's say this is my original model, then I can import those views, those detailed component views into my actual Revit model. So you can go to insert, and insert from file, insert views from file, and then I can go to my file that we're working in, the CAD roof details, and I'm going to open it. And so it's going to show me all the views that I can import from this original file. And of course, it's automatically checkbox the roof detail. But if I had multiple CAD details, I would just go through and I'd checkbox the ones I wanted. But for now, I'm just going to do roof detail. It's going to import it. And so now in my new file, or let's say it's my base project file, I now have this Revit detail view imported from my CAD detail Revit file. So I'm definitely open for questions. I'm kind of looking through some of what has been typed. I was told not to explode any AutoCAD details, just bring them in and draw over them. So if you still bring those into now I'm assuming you say don't explode any AutoCAD details, bring them into Revit and draw over them in Revit. You can do that, but again, you're inserting, even though you're not exploding it, you're inserting that AutoCAD detail into Revit, and that will actually cause you to have information from the CAD detail in your model. Even though it's not exploded, you're not exploding it, so you're not going to get all the bits and pieces, but you're still going to have, you know, Revit has identity tags for everything that's in the model, and so that DWG is still going to have information associated with it. Same thing if you do a floor plan. Let's say we're not even talking about CAD details and we're just talking about floor plans. Even doing that with floor plans can cause issues. So a workflow, that suggested workflow for that is, if you're going to, you know, trace over a CAD floor plan, you know, insert it, pull it in, but remove it once you've already done your plan. Try to remove as much information as you can by not doing that. And so again, it's a different workflow, and it depends on what your company's BIM manager instructs you to do with those details. Let's see, Billy, can you auto tag your detail components? Yes, actually you can. Let me flip back over here, and it's a tag, and it would just be a, you can tag by category. You can also, let's see, material, I think it's the material tag. And so I haven't associated this with anything, but if I did, let me try it with a user, because a user, you can specify whatever it is. So I've tagged my, I've actually tagged my detail component for the insulation. So we're going to go to thermal moisture protection, roof deck insulation. We'll just polyiso insulation board. And of course, this is set up, this is the out of the box settings. I've worked at firms before where we actually had our own you know, numbering system based on this, and you know, you can edit those within Revit. But yes, they do tag. Let's see, I can go tag, I can tag my wood framing. See if I'm in the right spot. I mean, you can do it by studs, 2x4 studs. And actually this would be more of a roof curb, but you get what I'm saying. It can associate it with the specification section. And yeah, and Lionel said they use multi-category instead of keynotes, and that's actually another another method as well. Yeah, and you know, I've worked on Revit since the, you know, ADT, since the first variation of it came out. And Revit is, if I'm not learning something new every day on Revit, then I'm not learning anything, because it's a program that's good, for better or worse. There's multiple ways to do one thing, and it's depends on what your workflow is, as to which, you know, works best for you. When adding detail components, should you delete lines from the CAD file behind them? Yes, and actually that was a step I missed on there. So some of these, because you know, I left as lines, but for example, behind these, I can come in and because I overlaid these with components. So if you select them and do filter, you can uncheck detail items and it'll show you, yeah, look at that, 20 lines that I can delete that are behind that. Thank you. That's Samantha, that's a great comment. And that was a step that I skipped out on there. Is definitely, you want to, after you overlay with your components, you definitely want to clean them up. So show how to save the single view again. Okay, so in my original, so this is actually my original drafting view. And so I I started to import. I started a new drafting view, drafting view, and then I imported whatever scale I wanted it at. And then you insert and import CAD. And you're going to select, let me do it. Well, I don't want to, well, I could do a different detail, but I haven't cleaned it up. So it'll just, it might be all messed up. I'll just import the same detail. And so I can explode it and then, you know, clean up whatever I need to clean up, change my fonts, everything else. So I have my two views down here. Let's say I go ahead, I've gone through and I've cleaned all this up. I save my roof detail file because I've created a separate CAD roof detail Revit project. I go ahead and save it. And then in my new project, which is right here, project 2, I haven't named it anything. I go to insert, insert from file, insert views from file. And what that's going to do is it's going to take whatever Revit project I open, it's going to allow me to select specific views from that file. So if you see here, now we've got another detail of the second one that I created, roof detail 2. And you probably don't want to reinsert the one you've already done. You can, but it'll rename it. It'll just rename it a different view as a copy. So maybe we can do that just to show you what it's going to do. So you just check box it. And I mean, you can also, with this insert views tool in Revit, you can also import schedules from other projects, drafting views, sheets. There's a lot of different things you can do with the insert views. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. No, import view has actually been in Revit. Oh boy, I almost want to say since the beginning. It's been around for quite a while. And of course, I've been using it for 15 years, so I apologize. I don't remember the exact name. Now, here's the thing too. If you notice, group 1's been renamed to group 4 to avoid conflicts, and that's because some of these groups that I inserted from one to the other, and it just renames it. But yeah, it's been import views been in Revit for quite a while, or insert. I'm sorry, insert from view, and then you can also insert 2D elements as well. That's another part of this tool that is really great at importing things in from other projects. Sorry, I'm in the wrong spot here. Let's see if I can get, let me click on that same. So insert 2D elements. What this does is this doesn't create a view specific to what you're importing. It just inserts the 2D elements from that. So if you have any modeling components, like if you actually overlay this, if you drew over a section cut, for example, then that wouldn't insert, it would just insert the line work. Let's see. Anybody, did I miss anybody's questions? Is it possible to tell Revit to use the item group already existing in the model instead of creating a copy of the group? Not when you're inserting the view. I mean, when you do that, or inserting the view, because it's associated with that view. And the way to do it would be is after you insert it, then you can change it to, see, I don't even remember what one it was now. It was one of the groups, but you can actually, you know, change it to the group that's already existing in your project would be the easiest way to do it. Because when you do that, let's see, let me go ahead and do this and show you, because it'll pop up that window. I just kind of, or the error, and I just kind of cleared it out. So it just renames it to avoid conflicts. But the only thing you can do within Revit is just delete it. Yeah, yeah, that's the difference between inserting a view and inserting 2D elements. And only one line of MText will import in Revit in most cases. I wasn't aware of that, but that's it wouldn't surprise me. No, the best way, I mean, duplicate line types, groups, etc. Um, we at ATG we have CTC tools, which are plugins, and in order to clean some of that up, you would use like a BIM project. This is the BIM Manager Suite. And you can do project cleaner, and then they also have renamers to where you can check families, rename parameters, a lot of different cleanup tools within the BIM Manager Suite. That would be one way to clean those up. These are all, if you go to atgusa.com, these have 14-day trials, and so you can try them out. For more information, you can talk to your ATG sales rep, and you can schedule a presentation. I use a lot of these tools almost on a daily basis with projects I work on. The light colored ones are the ones that stay free the whole time. The dark color ones are the premium tools, but you can download the 14-day trial and try them out. And there's some various tools in here that allow you to rename, renumber, clean up projects, clean up families, revisions, a lot of different tools in there. Let's see. Last group was one group. Oh, and that's, I think Jimmy was explaining what happened, that it made one group. Any tips for reusing model-based details from other projects? Well, and that's the hard one, Billy, is when you, when you draw, and let me see, maybe I can do something here real quick just to show what I'm talking about, because we've all been through this. And we draw, let's draw our wall, come in and put my window in, and then I want to cut a section through it, and then we go to that view, and then I'm going to create a call out of this, and then I go to that view, and then let's change my scale so that reads more like a header detail. And so now I'm going to want to come in here and I'm going to want to, start detailing stuff. Best practice for this, and it really depends on the project and at what phase you're at what stage. Because if you start, we've all been there. We come in, this is our detail, our detail, head detail, and hey, let's, we make sure we lock it, we constrain it so nothing's going to happen to it, and then we start drawing our detail components. And let me come in here again. I'll try it. I don't want to keep you guys longer than we need to, but if everybody's still getting something out of it, we do our bricks. Maybe we've got our steel lintel. Of course, I don't know if I have one of those loaded. Let's see. I don't have a lintel loaded, but you have your lintel. I can do my gypboard because I thought I had that in here. I don't. But you start putting all your detail components in, and you detail this, and you start, you get your dimensions on. hey, it's this to this, and you know, I've got my keynotes coming in, or you know, whatever type of note system you're going to use. You know, you start noting it, and then what happens is then the project manager or the owner or whoever comes in and says, you know what, we really want that window to be have a 4-foot sill. Well, now everything you've just drawn is kind of screwed up. So what I typically suggest is that for stuff like this, and it goes back to the presentation, let me jump back here, when it talks about the different types of detailing. I usually leave, you know, model-based detailing. You know, when you come in and start detailing like your overall scale of this building, half inch, you know, come in and, you know, you can put your, you know, you can put your suspension in for your ceiling, your cabling. You can do some different things with lights and stuff, because a lot of times it's such a large scale. It's at a larger scale that it's not going to matter if the window moves a little bit this way or that way, because you're not really doing your components. When you get into the real nitty gritty and wall details and flashing details, I usually suggest that you try to do those as a 2D and not incorporate those as a hybrid. Because if you do hybrids, then you can get into some tricky stuff, such as what if you know, they did all this work on this roof. What if this has to shift out a little bit to create an overhang or something on the other side? You know, you get some variations, and this is actually insulation, and the insulation is an annotation detail component. You've got some, it looks like you've got some window head details. You've got some various things going on in here that somebody had to kind of do some detail components on. And if that shifts, now you're going back and having to clean it up. Same thing with this column. If this column gets larger or smaller, all these metal studs that were placed as a detail, these are all detail components. You know, you have to kind of redo all that. So, I mean, if my tip is to, if you're going to get to enlarge details, to not do the detail component, or to not do a hybrid, to just do it as a 2D. But if that's the way you're going to do it, and reusing model-based details from other projects, normally you're just going to be doing like a copy paste. As long as the versions are the same, you know, you can come in and let me see if I can get to see how I was able to copy my detail component from this view to the other view. So if let's say I did detail this whole, you know, let's say I did detail this whole head detail over this model, and we're doing something similar in another project, you know, you can come in, select your filter, make sure you're only selecting, you know, the detail items and lines, and not any model family elements, anything like that. You can copy it, go back to your new detail in your other project, and, you know, copy paste, and then it should come in, you know, like if this was a full head detail with all the lines and gypboard and everything kind of in there, when you do a copy paste, it keeps it together until you uncheck it, you know, you click somewhere else. Otherwise it stays together, and then you can kind of position it, you know, position it to where you need it to be over your new detail. That was kind of a long explanation, Billy, but hopefully that did it. Does that view you imported, can it then be saved as a family, or is it best to save it as an original? That's a great question too. You can save it as a separate family for sure, and insert, you know, you'd be inserting it into your project as a family. And it's really a different workflow too. I don't think it's necessarily better or worse to do it either way. The thing I like about, let's see, but will it bring all the trash of AutoCAD? Okay, let me reread that. Does this view imported? Now, when you say imported, is it imported from CAD or imported from Revit? Okay, drawn in AutoCAD, then save it in Revit. And so you're saying if I import it from CAD and then save that view from Revit as a family, well, yeah, because let's see. Because if I start a family, then you can do a detail item and then insert CAD. So you can still do it as I did it as a detail family. And then I'm going to save, let's say I cleaned that all up and everything. And then I want to insert this as a family. So I can save the family as roof detail one family. And again, if I had gone through the process, I would have, I still cleaned this up original in Revit or in CAD, and then I would have pulled it into Revit family, exploded it, cleaned it up, put all my detail components and everything like that. And then in my project, I would create a new view and drafting view. And I would pretty much do the same thing as what I've been doing, except instead of inserting the view from another project, I would actually have a family, load family. Well, thinking, no, it didn't do it. What did it do? Let's see here. Oh, is it because I didn't explode it? Hmm. Played with a lot of details. There's a lot of trash in Revit file. Yeah, and it just comes with, I guess practice of, the more you do it and the more files you import and clean up, it is tricky to do into a model. Yeah, and that views, even though I've made a family with it, it's not importing that family for some reason. And it may be because I haven't spent the time to clean it all up and make them real components and stuff. Or no, you know what? I know what it is. It's because I'm in a detail view. Uh, well, no, that should be a drafting view. I'll have to look into that. I do appreciate you guys for being patient with this or with me, uh, and definitely hope you enjoyed learning about the three types of detailing and importing your CAD details, cleaning them up. We covered a lot: Revit detail components, detail line work, regions. You can subscribe to ATG social media on LinkedIn and YouTube. And we have new content, blogs, webinars, white papers each week. And definitely, if you have any suggestions on content that you would like to see or that you'd like us to present or questions answered, definitely just contact us at atgusa.com. And thank you again. Hope you enjoyed the presentation.